So today we are starting chapter 5. The first section we're going to look at is section 1, so we're doing 5.1 today. It's all about congruence and triangles. Our objective is to identify congruent triangles and corresponding parts. Any questions before we get moving? Alright, so you have 2 vocabulary words for today. Again, these are very popular on notebook checks, so make sure you get them both down. The first definition is corresponding parts. Those are sides and angles that are the same in congruent figures. And then the next word is congruent. We talked about congruence and congruence a lot in the first semester, but here's just a reminder if you forgot over break. Parts of the figure that are the exact same measure. So if I tell you that 2 sides are congruent, you know they have the same measure. If I tell you 2 angles are congruent, you know that they have the same measure as well. So the theorem on the board says that if all parts of 2 triangles are congruent, then the 2 triangles are congruent. And congruent parts we call corresponding parts. So I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit, and I want you to do the same as you're going through yours. So basically what this is saying is you are going to have angles that match up with one another. We call those corresponding angles, or corresponding parts of triangles. So if A and J are congruent, we say they are corresponding parts. Which one would have to be the same as B? K. Good. So B would match up with K, and then C would match up with R. And we can show that those are all congruent by putting the same marks on them. So A goes with J, B goes with K, C goes with R. It works for the sides as well. AB would go with which side? JK. Good. And BC would go with which side? KR. Good. So I'm going to mark those the same. And CA would go with which side? Yeah, the last one. RJ. Good. So I have marked these to indicate that all the parts are the same in both triangles. Do you all see that? Yeah. They all have 3 congruent sides and 3 congruent angles. When that is the case, we can simply say that the triangles are congruent. The way we do that is you use the triangle symbol, and then you name the first triangle. I'm going to name it A, B, C. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Now here is where it gets a little on the tricky side. You need to write it in the exact same order so that the corresponding parts line up. So what do I need to do first if I have A first? J needs to go first. Good. And if B is second, what needs to go second in this triangle? K. And if C is last, what needs to be last in the other triangle? R. Good. So there are 2 ways to tell which parts are corresponding. You can just go by the picture if it's labeled, or you can go by the position in the directions. Usually this part is given to you in the directions. So you know that A goes with J because they are in the same position. B and K, C and R. Alright, so that's just a little bit about corresponding parts of congruent triangles. Any questions? Here's our first example. I am not sure why it looks so goofy. This was copied out of a book and then copied and pasted, and when I did that, it sort of made the bottom line kind of crazy looking. They're supposed to look exactly the same. So just draw them a little better than they are on the board. I do apologize about that. And the directions for this one say identify all the corresponding parts. Whenever the directions say identify all the corresponding parts, you will have 3 corresponding angle pairs and 3 corresponding side pairs. So 6 total corresponding parts. We'll do the angles first. Angle A is congruent to which angle? F, good. Angle B is congruent to which angle? D. And angle C is congruent to which angle? E. Very good. Make sure you're using the angle symbol. Some people get lazy and they just put the letters. Don't be that person. Any questions on the angles? All right, we can talk about the sides now. Remember, when you're labeling sides, these are just line segments. So you need 2 letters and the symbol for a line segment above it. So AB goes with which one? FD, very good. And I'm just going to go around that first triangle, so then I'll have BC matches with DE. And then CA matches with EF. Very good. So again, anytime you're asked to identify all the corresponding parts, you should have 6 answers. 3 will be pairs of angles that are corresponding, therefore congruent. And then 3 sides that match up with 3 of the other sides in the other triangle. And those will be congruent. Any questions so far? So in example 2, we're given the information that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle KLM. You need to pay close attention to the order that that's given. So angle A is the same as angle K. Angle B goes with angle L, and angle C goes with angle M. So in order for that to work, you'll have to take this first triangle and sort of flip it in order to line up with this other triangle. So although they are congruent, they're not exactly, they don't look exactly the same. You got to take this one and sort of rotate it up to get the same as this one. So it's kind of visualizing it. If that confuses you, just stick with this to sort of help you out. The same order matches up. So if I'm looking for the length of KM, you see how K is the first letter and M is the last letter? Yeah. So it should match up with segment AC, first letter and last letter in the other triangle. So what is the length of AC? KM. What's the length? 45. So the answer is just 45. So again, if you want to visualize it, sort of think of it as rotating in your mind to match up. That's fine, or you can just rely on the order that the letters were given and the directions. That will help too. Or this one's actually kind of easy because that was the only length given. So whichever way you arrive at the right answer, just make sure you get the right answer. Fine with me. Angle B matches up with which angle again? L. And what is the measure of angle L? 108 degrees. Good. What are your questions on this? Mm-hmm. Probably get it done in class, I think. All right, let's move on. Here's example 3. Again, we're given congruent triangles. They're not as nice and neatly lined up as the last one. You sort of have to or as 2 examples ago, you sort of have to visualize some flipping and turning in order for them to line up. Again, if you get stuck, just rely on the order. So S and Y go together, T and X go together, and U and Z will go together. But I'll give you a second to write this one down. The directions say to label or to list all the corresponding parts. So again, we'll have 3 sets of angles and 3 sets of sides. All right, I'm going to jump right in. Angle S is congruent to which angle? Y, very good. They're actually both labeled as right angles. We'll just go in order. So we'll do T next. So angle T is congruent to which one? Make sure they're labeled the same or that they're in the same order. So T goes with which one? Not Z. X. Very good. Notice it has 2 arc marks, so this one needs 2 little arc marks as well. And then angle U is congruent to Z, the only one left. Good. Any questions on those? Again, it's a little tricky when the triangles aren't positioned the exact same way, but definitely manageable. All right, I'm just going to kind of go in order of the way the tick marks are. So 1 tick mark on this one is ST, and that goes with which segment on the other one? YX, very good. Now, I'm going to just write over those to know that that one's taken care of. We already listed it, okay? Sometimes it's hard to tell what you've done and what you haven't done. All right, let's go to the ones with 2 markings. So I'm going to call that SU. Goes along with which one? YZ, very good. Let's sort of mark that one off. And then last one, we can call it UT. So I started in the angle that had 1 mark, I went down to the one with 2. So start with 1 and go to 2, so ZX. Very good. So again, a little trickier, but not unheard of, not too hard. Again, if the pictures are confusing you, you can just sort of go in order. You see how ST are the first 2 letters given? It can go with the first 2 letters given on the next one. YX. Then we went SU, so you'd have to do YZ. Then the last 2, TU and XZ. If you want to do it that way, fine. You could just ignore the pictures altogether and just go with what's given in the directions. What questions do you guys have? All right, last example of the day. The directions tell me that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, and I'm supposed to find the length of DF and the measure of angle B. So let's do DF first. DF is this guy down here. It looks like if you take this triangle and you just flip it up, that'll give you the triangle ABC. So which side's going to match up with DF? AC, good. And what's the length of AC? 3. Wonderful. Alright, next I'm looking for angle E. Which one needs to be the same as angle E? Oh, backwards. Sorry, I'm looking for angle B. Totally gave it away. Sorry about that. B and E are corresponding angles, so they are going to have the same measure. So the measure of angle B is what? 28 degrees. Very good. What questions do you guys have on this? Alright, so your homework tonight is the worksheet I just gave you. It's worksheet 5.1, practice A. I want to do the first problem from each section with you on the board. So that'll be number 1, number 7, number 14, and number 17. The rest you will be responsible for doing on your own. Number 1, the directions say, given that triangle PQR is congruent to triangle ABC, match the corresponding congruent parts. So instead of making you list them, you're just doing a matching section. So side PR would go with which side? AC. Do you see the list of letters to the right? Which one's AC? D. So your answer is actually just D. It's just a matching. Alright, you'll need to do the rest of those. The next section says, in exercise 7 through 12, determine whether the given angles or sides are corresponding angles, corresponding sides, or neither. So I'm actually just going to let you write yes or no. So are they corresponding? Yes or no? No. So LK and WY. Does LK match up with WY? Yes, so you just put yes. If they don't match up, if they're not corresponding, you can just put no. So they're just a yes or a no on that one. If you want to specify yes, corresponding angles or corresponding sides, you can, but it's pretty obvious if they're segments, it's the sides. If they're angles, it's angles. And then 13, I'm going to let you do on your own, but you are determining which one's the right way to write that. So the two triangles from 7 to 12, what's the correct way to write it? All right, jump down to number 14. List all the corresponding angles. So instead of all the corresponding parts, you're going to do the angles for number 14 and then the sides for number 15. So let's just jump right in. Angle D goes with which one? Very good. Angle E is congruent to angle Y, and angle F is congruent to angle Z. Very good. And then the last one, it says, in the drawing of the house at the right, triangle PQR is congruent to triangle XZY. So do you see it starts at the top and then it goes to the outside of the house and then to the inside of the house? That's going to matter on this next one because it says use the order of the letters in the congruent statement above to list all the corresponding congruent angles. So angle P is congruent to which one? X, very good. This is where it gets tricky. Angle Q is on the outside. So I need to go with the outside angle on the other side of the house, which is which one? Z, very good. And again, I know that's true because the order that they're given. P and X were both in the first position. Q and Z were both in the second position. And then R and Y are both in the last position. So just rely on the directions on those a little more than the pictures. And if you get stuck, just let me know. This is new, so it might be a bit confusing. Right. Yeah. Another way, if it confuses you, just label it as you go. So as you're reading the directions, just sort of label the corresponding parts. But again, if you get stuck, we don't have a quiz until next Wednesday, so we do have some time to practice. Any questions before I set you loose? You got about 9 minutes to work on this worksheet. Anything you don't finish in class, just take home and finish.